In this video, I'm going to introduce for loops. So this is a type of loop. It's a way to repeat code a certain number of times. This is going to be a really useful thing, especially if you've found yourself copying and pasting code to get it to repeat multiple times. This is going to be what you want to use instead. These are just my notes to remind myself of what I want to talk about. So I'm just going to start with the first one. Let's loop a specific number of times, and let's print out those numbers. So we start with the word for. We need a variable name. Traditionally, we use I if you're just having a generic for loop. You can name it whatever you want, right? I'll show some other names later. And then you say for I in range. What range do you want to go to? Now this range, you should note, always starts at 0 unless you tell it differently. So let's start at 0 and let's go and put in 5 and see what prints out. So when I run it, so this might be somewhat unexpected. It prints out 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It does not print out 5. What it does do, however, is it prints out 5 total numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So since range starts at 0, it's going to print as many numbers as you put right here. This in total is going to loop as many times as the number inside these parentheses, but it will not actually get up to this number. It will always get up to 1 less than this number right here. I said that you could use different variable names right here. I'm going to verify that. Right? I can name it whatever I want. It's just a variable. Traditionally, we use I, but I can name it Bill. Print it out the exact same thing. Here, let's just show you that it can print out other things. So now it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? It stops 1 before this number right here. So I'm looping a specific number of times. I'm repeating this many times. So I'm going to put I back. Suppose I wanted something to print out 3 times. Suppose I want to print out Bill 3 times. Run it. All right, Bill, Bill, Bill. All right, so I've repeated whatever this code is in here this many times. I'm going to demonstrate this another way. X equals 1. But in here, I'm going to say X equals X plus 1. And then at the very end, I'm going to print out X. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding 1 to the current value of X. And I'm going to do it 3 times. So what do you think is going to print here? I hope you guessed that 4 was going to print, right? Because I started at 1, and I added 1 more, and I did that 3 times in total because I repeated this code 3 times. So I ended up with 4. All right, great. Suppose I want to add up all the numbers from 1 through 1,000. So the first thing I need to do is I need to loop 1,000 times. So if I do this, actually so X is what I'm going to sum up. I'm going to start it off at 0. And I'm not going to add 1 to X. I'm going to add I. Right? I is going to increase by 1 each time I repeat through this loop. It's going to start at 0, which I can add on with no trouble. And then it's going to go to 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then so on. However, I just said this range does not actually go up to 1,000. What does it go up to? In this case, it's going to go up to 999. I want to go through 1,000 and include 1,000, which means I have to go to 1,001. Now this is going to be hard to verify because I'm not sure what the sum is from 1 to 1,000, but let's run it and see what we get anyway. All right, apparently it's 500,500. Let's add up some easier numbers. Let's go to 11. So 1 plus 2 plus, actually let's just go to 6. So we'll go add up all the numbers 1 through 5. That'll be easy to confirm. All right, we get 15. Does that check out? Let's see. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. 5 plus 4, actually, there's a trick, right? 4 plus 1 is 5. 2 plus 3 is 5. 5 and 5 and 5 is 15. We got it. All right. So what if I want to add up the numbers between 500 and 1,000? So I need to go up to 1,001, but now I need to not start at 0. I want to start at 500. This is actually really easy. So range is a function. We give it an argument, a number that we want it to go up to, but we can actually pass it other arguments. If instead we say 500 comma 1001, we're going to pass in 2 arguments. We're going to pass in the start and the end. And actually, to make this even clearer, I'm going to use variable names, start and end, so that it's easier to read. It looks a little bit more like English. All right, so let's run this, 500 through 1,000, and it's apparently this number. Let's actually verify this by adding up from 5 to 7. This is only going to add up 5 and 6, right? Because it goes to 1 less than the ending. So it'll add 5 plus 6 should give me 11. And there we go, 11. Okay, great. So I'm adding up all the numbers 500 to 1,000. Now, suppose I just want to add up between two arbitrary values. In fact, suppose I want a function that's going to do that for me. We're going to continue to look at functions. This is a good place to review them. So I want a function called SumUp. It's going to add up the numbers between my starting number and my ending number. And I should write a comment, like, does it include my starting number and my ending number? Let's say that it does. So adds up all numbers, all integers between start and end, comma, including both. So this is a good comment describing what this function does. And it's also going to return these values. So let's create a for loop and see how this works. I'm actually going to get rid of this code right here. I'm going to rewrite it. So my for loops always start with the keyword for. You may have noticed keywords are, at least in my editor, green. Right? Def is a keyword. It's in green as well. For is a keyword. I'm going to use I as my variable because I typically use I. In is another keyword. So for each number in this range, well, what's my range going to be? It's going to be start to end, or is it? If I want to include both the start and the end, I'm going to make a tiny little adjustment and just add 1 to the end right there. And you'll also notice there's a colon at the end. Right? Colons are used at the end of for loops, at the end of function definitions, at the end of if statements. If x equals 2, and then a colon, right? So what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to add up all these numbers. Oh, I should have had a variable that I'm adding things up into. Let's call it total. It starts off at 0. As I loop through, I say total equals total itself, its previous value, plus the current number that I'm counting. And at the very end, I'm going to return total. I'm going to return whatever it was that I added up. So let's say x equals sum up, and I'm going to add again from 5 to 6. Remember, I said in my comment that I'm including both. This should add up to 11 if I print it correctly, right? Because I changed this right here so that I'm going up to the number end, not 1 less than end. Adding 1 there makes it go up to end itself. So I should get 11 here. I get 11. If I go from 1 to 1,000, I should get that 500,500. And I do. Great. My function seems to work. So I've created a sum up function here. That's kind of handy. I go from start to end. What are my other notes? Okay, that was summing up between two values. Great. Suppose I just want to add up the odd numbers. This is kind of an interesting thing. I'm not going to write a function for this, but you can imagine how I would. So I'm going to get rid of this. I just want to add up all the odd numbers between, I don't know, let's say, let's just add up all the odd numbers from 1 to 10. So for I in range. And the way that I can do this is I can start off at 1. I can go up to, now if I want to include 10, 10's not odd, so I actually don't have to worry about that. I'm going to go up through 9. It'll be 1 less than 10. That'll be fine. Suppose I want to, but I don't want to include 2 and 4 and 6. So I can count by 2's. So I'm adding a third argument, this 2, to my range function. And let's just print out I, just to make sure this does what I'm saying it does. I printed out 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So I'm skipping. I'm going from 1, I'm adding on 2 to here, 3. Then I'm adding on 2 to get to 5. And once I get up to 1 less than 10, I'm done. And you can count by other things as well. We can count by 3's. So I'm going to go from 1, I should add 3 and go to 4, and then add 3 and go to 7. And then I think I'll be done. 1, 4, 7. So I can increase by whatever amount I want by giving this third argument. So if we're using those variables to help clarify again, this is usually called the step size. It's how much we're stepping up. Right, you could call it the increment is another good name. Right, it's how much we're increasing by. But it actually doesn't have to be how much we're increasing by. We could count down. We're going to count down to liftoff. Okay, so what if we started at 10 and ended at, let's end, so if I say -1, I'm actually going to end at 0 instead. And I'm going to steps down by 1. So now I'm starting at 10, right? It's like I put a 10 in here. I'm ending at actually 0 because it's 1 before the end. And before is now actually going to be greater than. And my step size is going to be 1. Let's run it. And nothing printed. Why not? Start, end. Oh, my step size. My step size is positive, so I'm actually counting upward, and so it's just not going to do anything. I'm counting down, so my step size needs to be negative. All right, so now you can see 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And of course, I should print blast off as is appropriate for a good countdown. All right, there we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, blast off. Suppose, actually, I just want to count down to 1 and then say blast off. Put a 0 here. Actually, just a reminder again, we can just put numbers right in here. We can start at 10, we can end at 0, and I'm going to count down by -1. So I run it, and I've got my countdown, 1, and then blast off.